Hi everyone, and welcome back. I'm with District Attorney Todd Riebe, and we're gonna run down that 3-year. Basically, I guess there's 35,000 lifers in the prison system down here in California, and tell us then what we have. Like 60% of those are.
Well, not 60% of those.
Okay.
Marcy's Law created a system where you can either deny parole for 15 years, 10 years, 7 years, 5 years, or 3 years.
Okay.
60% of all the denials, more than 60% actually of all the denials, are for 3 years.
Okay.
So the new regulation, which actually it's a new policy, the regulation was already there. The Board of Parole Hearings is independently, in every case where there's been a 3-year denial of parole, going back over those cases and determining if there's any new information or change in circumstances which justifies accelerating a new parole hearing and presumably, in my opinion, giving them a parole grant. That will clear out more lifers. And what's propagating all this? The administration believes very clearly, it was in a Fox News article yesterday, actually it was Associated Press article, but it was in Fox News, that talked about the California lifer population. They believe that the lifer population is a lower recidivism rate upon release than the general population.
How did they arrive at that?
Well, there's a Stanford study that monitored inmates tracked them between 1990 and 2010, and determined that they, in their opinion, that they had a lower recidivism rate than the general population. My quibble with that...
And the recidivism rate would be for what kind of crime?
Well, it depends on what... The old definition of recidivism is that they were arrested for violation of parole, violation of probation, or for commission of a new crime. The new definition is a conviction, not necessarily an arrest for doing those things. So...
Well, they were on parole.
Right.
Okay, so, but basically, in the old days, or whatever, if you were on parole, you had to serve out all those conditions, or you were just automatically saying, you didn't live up to your part of the deal, you get, you know...
We'll take you back.
We're taking you back, right?
You're going to serve out some time.
That kind of concept is gone?
No, it's still there.
Okay.
It's just there's only so much room at the end. So locally, in effect, you violate your parole, there's not a lot of stick. There's a lot of carrot, but there's not a lot of stick because in many counties they don't have the room in their local prisons, jails, to keep them. And so they're immediately turned out. They're booked and released for parole violations. So even Joan Petrosilia, who's the author of the Stanford study, recent Stanford study, and one of the architects of realignment, has said that you know, in order for parole to be meaningful, there has to be a stick, and was recommending that there be a 3-year cap in the amount of time that you can spend in local prison, and anything beyond 3 years has to be spent in state prison. The state is opposed to that because that would increase the prison population in the state and make it more difficult to achieve the prison population cap that they have to get to. So what the state's proposing is that they're going to have a 10-year cap on how much time you can spend in local prison, and anything beyond 10 years would be spent in state prison.
I feel like I have to jump in and ask like a kind of a question. There's it's too late to ask, you know, in a way for the question, but why couldn't the circuit court have said you need to build more prisons and force that kind of a judgment? Could that have been done?
Well, it could be done, but you have to have the political will to do it. Building prisons doesn't. It's not like it happens like overnight. Right. It takes years and years. You have to go through environmental impact studies and sometimes lawsuits, and then there's the NIMBY, not in my backyard. And so prison construction has come to virtually a halt. And the fact of the matter is that California prison construction has not kept pace with the population, and because of that, it hasn't kept pace with the criminal population. The reason that we're overpopulated, there's too many inmates in California prisons, Tom, isn't because California is putting a disproportionate number in state prison. We ranked 24th in 2012, 24th out of the 50 states. We're dead in the center. And it's not because we haven't had any kind of sentencing reform, because we just had Proposition 36, which revised 3 strikes and resulted in a reduction in state prison population. And we also had a major overhaul in our drug possession crimes, which was also called Proposition 36, which in lieu of incarceration gave them an opportunity to receive drug treatment. So we are addressing those. The reason that we have an overpopulation problem is we haven't built more prisons.
I have to bring up for this because generally as a district attorney, you probably represent the state as a victim or a person as a victim in crimes. And we don't hear that in realignment and stuff. I don't hear any lookout for victims.
Well,
or the state itself as possibly becoming victimized.
Yeah, I sit on the board of the California Crime Victims Action Alliance, and then of course with CDAA, we've been talking about this a lot. The pendulum has swung. It's decidedly swung in the area of public safety, and I think, in my opinion, it's swung too far the other way. The corrections that needed to be made have swung it too far away from public safety. And away from a focus on victims. For instance, we talked about that accelerating those hearings,
right.
The 3-year denials. Let me bring it home for the viewers what these hearings are. You have an inmate, you have the parole board, you have a prosecutor, you have the inmate defense attorney, and you have your victim or your victim's next of kin who are present there at that hearing. To tell a victim or the victim's next of kin that the person who murdered your daughter or your loved one, we found a change in circumstances, whatever that may be. We're going to accelerate the hearing and put you through that hell again that you just went through, again, ahead of the time that you expected. All the sleepless nights, all the nervousness, all these things, we're going to put it again, we're going to pick that scab off and make you go through that again. It's a system that doesn't show a lot of compassion to what victims and victims next to kin go through. And I would, somewhere along the line, we've forgotten, the system has forgotten what goes on.
Being a victim.
Well, it seems that way.
There's no.
I think we've gotten away from focusing on what it's like to be a victim and trying to prevent them from going through those kinds of that kind of turmoil that the system can often, wreak upon them.
Okay, so where are we now? We have a few minutes. Looks like we have about 2 minutes. You want to tie things up, or?
Well, let's talk a little bit about what's been happening statewide since realignment, getting away from what the three-judge panel just recently did. The governor's office is going to seek legislation for a 10-year cap on local prison sentences, and they're going to,
instead of the 3.
Well, no, there's not a 3. That's what Joan Petrosilia wanted.
Oh, okay.
Right now, there is no cap.
Okay.
That's why we have some counties that have as much as there's one down in San Diego, 26 years in county jail. That's too much. We weren't built for that. And also, they want to seek legislation for mandated split sentencing. What that's going to do is free up, if you have to split a sentence, let's say you get 5 years. If you mandate a split sentence, the court could say, well, 2.5 of that's going to be spent in custody at the county prison, and the other 2.5 is going to be spent on mandated supervision, where the probation department supervises you while you're on parole. What that's going to do is free up more bed space, which hopefully provides that stick that we were talking about when you do violate your parole, that they can put you in jail and there actually is a bed for you. They're also, around the state, we're trying to come to a common understanding as to what the definition for recidivism should be under realignment. And it's a battle. It'll be fought over the next year and a half, and maybe I can come back and share some of those stories with you as it goes through. And then lastly, the counties like LA and San Diego and your larger communities, they're continuously releasing state prison local prison, but local prison inmates because they don't have room at the inn. There is a very real question as to whether or not they can do that under the law. That will be fought out in the years and months to come.
Who had the standing to bring that, and who's bringing that? We have a,
Well, counties have the standing to do it.
Okay.
That is a question, is who's got the standing. I would think victims have the right to do it. Marcy's Law is implicated in this, the separation of powers
do
theory.
we have any lawsuits moving now?
No.
No. Okay.
No, there's not.
Possibility for them.
I think the ground is ripe for that. The dissatisfaction that many folks in the system and out of the system have had with some of the ramifications of AB 109, I think, are going to be litigated.
Okay, we'll have to have you back and find out more. And thanks for watching us right here on TSPN. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.